I'm Gary Bontrager, your host of Mindset Growth Podcast. I have Heather Mullinex here with me, my co-host. We are excited for our next guest. Excited because we all come out of the small towns and small businesses, and we work with a lot of the same, or have experienced a lot of the same problems that you as a listener experience in your day-to-day business life. So what I am excited about today is all the different things that our guest has been involved in, and the experience and the knowledge that he's going to be able to share, how to deal with difficult situations, how to push forward, and how to create new opportunities. And with that, I want to welcome Todd Thams to Mindset Growth Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Heather and Gary. I'm excited to be here today. Thanks for having me on.
Well,
yeah, we're excited to talk to you, especially with our pre-talk here, just hearing about another new venture that we had no idea about. So hopefully we'll get to that too in the podcast.
A little bit going back, I met you clearly through insurance, and our paths, life has taken us through some different paths clearly. Yep. That's why we're sitting here today. But go ahead, just for the audience, introduce yourself a little bit. Talk about maybe some of your background or how you grew up and some of that.
Sure. It's interesting. As I was prepping for the podcast today, I was trying to remember when the last time our paths really crossed. And I'm sure it had to be at an insurance golf outing, right, probably over on the eastern side of the state, but that was years ago. So yeah, I'm an Iowa boy, born and raised in Western Iowa in a small town of Denison, Iowa. If you've ever had a piece of bacon, there's a good chance it came out of Denison, Iowa. We're home of Smithfield, where there's a pork processing plant, and they make bacon and they ship it all over the country. So I graduated school there, went to Simpson College, and then for most of my professional career, I don't even know if you know this, but I used to run a bunch of Arby's restaurants.
Oh,
I did it in the Des Moines area. Was a regional manager back in my 20s. Packed up the wife and kids. We moved to Minneapolis, lived there for about 18 months. And started having more kids, and the work schedule. And I found out kind of a long time ago, I really didn't like working for other people. I liked working for myself. So my dad says, why don't you come back and join the family business? And I swore that I was never going to go back to Denison, Iowa. I did not. I graduated, I left, I moved on. We were living in the city. And so we moved back. My wife's family is about 30 miles away. Moved back, wife, kids. Took a significant pay cut because my dad says, this is all I can pay you. You better go out and sell. And I said, okay, let's go sell. And so that was in 2004 when I joined the family business, bought that family business in 2012, launched a couple more businesses in 2019, 2020. And just last fall, we sold it would have almost been 90 years in our family.
Oh, wow.
We sold our family business to First National Insurance Group out of Omaha.
That's interesting. You triggered a lot of questions with all of that because I didn't know anything about, Arby's and some of those things, but clearly you enjoy people. And if you come back to a small town coming out of a big city, it's quite a cultural difference. But if you're going to go sell to get your income up, that's just intriguing for one. I mean, it's perseverance, and that's a lot of hard work. But talk a little bit about the process of selling a family business that's been in your family for 90 years, because that can be a little bit tough sometimes with the relationships of of parents and brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, other family members.
Yeah. So I actually have a brother and a sister, and neither of them were involved in the family business. My mother and father both still worked in the family business. And it's kind of interesting. We all had our separate roles. My dad was strictly farm, and I am not a farm person per se, unless you're going to run a farming business like a corporation. And then we would do business on the insurance side that way. My mom loves personal lines, love it when people come in and talk to her. But I think there comes a beginning and an end for every chapter.
Right.
And it was to the point anymore where I thought we reached our market potential. I was really excited about the future of Mod Advisor. That was starting to take off. And so I couldn't do both jobs well, and I couldn't take care of my clients and my employees in a way that I really wanted to.
Right.
just because I was absent. Mod Advisor had me traveling all over the place. My clients were like, "Hey, I never see you anymore." My staff, Todd, you're never in the office. And it's really kind of heartbreaking because a lot of these people have been with me. Some of my employees have been with me since, I bought the business. I hired them myself, trained them. But I think we made the right decision when we ended up selling. We looked for a business that treats their employees well. And interesting thing about First National Insurance Group is so they're owned by the Lordson family, and the Lordson family own the largest privately held bank in the country. And you wouldn't know it because they're all branded as county state banks: Crawford County Bank, Shelby County Bank, Sibley State Bank, Landman's Bank. But the people that worked at the bank across from our office, many of them, that was their sole career.
Oh, okay.
Like they are there for 20 and 30 years. They retire there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as we were courting people to purchase our insurance office, I kind of already knew how they treated their employees. And that made me feel really good that they take care of their clients, they take care of their employees. They're here to stay. This is not a fly-by-night operation that's private equity that we're going to strip it out and try and capitalize on it. They have wanted a space in that spot for years. And so we worked out a deal, and they brought in new people and continue to grow it today.
Cool. The other thing that's interesting to me, and we're going to have to come back a little bit, but I'm going to jump ahead while we're on the subject of it. You said you started a business in 2019 and 2020, which we're going just into COVID at this point, I believe. So that had to be a lot of challenges, or what was, how did you work through that?
So we went digital. Part of the reason for the exit out of insurance was just the frustration. I don't know if you share the same frustration, but it's just getting harder and harder, and things are more inefficient.
Yes.
And like it should be a lot simpler.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because there's certain companies out there that make things really simple. So initially we launched direct work comp, and there were a couple carriers that we partnered with that had instant APIs. We can quote, bind, and issue. And we actually have the ability through direct work comp to quote, bind, issue a number of policies all across the United States. Today, that company writes business. I mean, we're licensed nationwide, but there's business, in a number of states that we operate in. And then I went to where my focus on insurance was really commercial and work comp. That's really what I liked. And when you look at mod analysis software, there was only one in the country. And I thought there's got to be a better way to make this a little more simple, a little more visually appealing to the end consumer. And we could talk about all that, but my data will tell us that 90% of all businesses overpay for work comp. It is low hanging fruit. There's simple things that businesses can do to actually reduce their total cost of risk, make themselves more profitable, put more money back into their company, which they can use as a launch pad to increase wages, hire more people, a number of things. And so that is the mission that we're on right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to move forward just a little bit. And do you have a morning routine?
Not anymore.
That's gone.
Back before COVID, it was like, get up at 5:30, go work out, do all of these things. And you read all these books that tell you got to do all these things in the morning. And I'm not that person. I mean, I like getting up in the morning. I like having my routine. Lately, usually I'm talking to the dev team, which is India based, starting at 6:30 in the morning. So I've usually got a couple hours in before even 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no more. A lot of things don't work for me. Like people say, "Oh, you should journal. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you know what? I'd like to do what I kind of like to do. And if I want to go ride a bike on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock, that's what I'm going to do."
Right.
I think we get our hours in. We certainly work hard, but there's no morning routine right now. And you're not even aware of this, but we just had a grandkid recently.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I became a grandfather. So our daughter's been living with us, and we've been helping her out. And so there's no routine when there's an infant in the house, none.
Right. No, not
the routine's
not
whatever the infant wants.
Yep.
Right.
That's exactly right. We're going to go ahead and get into a couple of rapid fire questions here for you that you haven't seen yet.
Go for it.
Okay. What is one childhood thing that you still enjoy? Popsicles.
What's that?
Popsicles.
Don't think about it. Just go.
Yeah.
Boating.
Boating.
Awesome.
That's a great one. What's your favorite hobby?
Probably, I would say golf.
Golf.
A
Yeah,
good one too.
that is a great one.
And that's a good life when you can go ride your bike on a Wednesday afternoon, take your boat out when you feel like it, and get some golf in too.
There are 4 things I like to do: boat, golf, cycle, and go out for a nice dinner and have a glass of wine.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Those are the 4 perfect things for me.
Gotcha. I can relate to those.
And go home and hold your grandbaby.
Right.
That's right.
What song do you know by heart?
A lot of Eminem ones. Also
Yeah?
interesting, a lot of James Taylor ones.
Okay.
Okay.
That's quite the combination there.
We were listening to James Taylor in the car the other day, and I was singing along, and my wife's like, "How do you know the words to this song?"
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, I had the album back when I was in college and all these long road trips. And he's like, "Oh, late at night, you want something to chill out to? You throw on some James Taylor," and I know all the words by heart.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I was going to ask you how you got into insurance. We already have that story. So, and then we're going to talk a little bit about customer service and about you getting into insurance and if you just working with people and naturally working with people. But you've already, and I don't, earlier you had talked about how you started out of college really managing RVs. So you've kind of really been in a leadership or customer service role pretty much all your life. Is that something that you did intentionally, or is it just doors opened up for you? What got you to take that path?
I don't want to say that I'm a natural leader, but I'm certainly a planner and a take charge type of person. And it's interesting, when you sent over the questions last night, I was really thinking, I'm not a customer service person.
Okay.
Some of those mundane interactions when it comes to customer service, I don't really enjoy. They're monotonous and repeatable, and the interaction creates frustration for me. There's people in my office or people I work with that absolutely love them, and we empower them to do that. I think really what I am at heart is a mechanic. I like to take things that are broken and make them better and fix them. And that has been where I think my strength over the insurance career has come in at, is people come to us with problem accounts, and it's like, let's roll up our sleeves, get our hands dirty, figure out what the problem is, figure out how to solve it, put together a 3-year to 5 year plan to execute that. And that's really where I love to shine. So whatever's broken, I like to go in and fix.
Well, that's interesting because of course, this podcast is all about changing how you think about things. And I love to talk to people that have overcame things, started things, created things. Personally, I can relate to that a lot. I'd much rather look at data and figure out solutions than to just do the day-to-day. I don't really enjoy that myself either. But knowing that you sold that you sold off the agency, it kind of changes a lot of these at this point in time. But as you create new businesses and things like that, what's are there other people you follow? Is this something that your dad kind of exemplified for you? What put you in the frame of mind to go ahead and say, we've got a situation here. I can look at this thing, take a lot of emotion out of it, and diplomatically look at what needs to be done and how it needs to be handled to improve, to grow. What was that process? Was there something in your life that kind of triggered that? Because leadership, I guess I'll come back to preface this. Leadership really, I believe, can be taught if people want to learn it. And I can promise you're a better leader today because of things you learned over a period of time. But your natural tendency is to solve problems. So I don't know if that helps that.
Yeah, so I would credit a lot of my growth. So I didn't finish college. You look back, I'm 46 years old today. There were clues along the way about who you're going to grow up to become. They just weren't clear when you're 18, 21, 25. I wish I would have listened to those and probably explored them a little more, earlier in my life. Maybe my path would have been a little bit drastically different. I credit a lot of my success. So the number one franchise for Arby's, the largest franchise back in the late 90s, early 2000s was RTM. They owned like 900 stores. And they just acquired the Minneapolis 100 stores up there or something like that, which was The Minneapolis stores were the highest sales stores in the entire country. But RTM, who owned all the Arby's, they had a whole leadership plan. It was books, it was leadership, it was training, it was flying down to corporate office. And that I really enjoyed. They had a very formal plan for how they were going to take somebody and move them up through the chain of command throughout their career and provide them with education along every single path. That was a great start. Certainly from that, I've continued to read, grow. We read books all the time. But yeah, a natural leader, you have to want to improve and learn. It's not something that you can just sit back on your laurels and say, I'm a great boss.
Right.
You know?
So what advice do you give somebody who's young, maybe doesn't have the opportunity for the structure like you have?
So what I did with my kids, we actually sat down a few years ago during COVID. We read Robert Kiyosaki's book. We've talked to them about the difference between employee, sole proprietor, larger companies, how all of that works. And we're empowering them to create their own businesses and work for themselves, which, my daughter's going through that right now. She actually runs a marketing company for insurance agents. And,
wow.
Some days don't go as good as others, and it's up to her, to make a little bit less money right now. She's looking at the future and what that's going to be like. But a lot of reading, a lot of education, as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of second guessing. Am I doing the right thing? How does this affect my family? And when I was younger, I would look, or I would leap before I would look. Certainly I take a little more of a look today. But it's not an easy journey for an entrepreneur. And you know that.
Right.
So I guess my question here is, and Gary, I apologize if I'm skipping ahead here, but,
Go ahead.
But so it's very interesting to me. I worked for Gary when he had Century Insurance. He still does, but I'm on this side now. But work comp was not, there's very few people that really love work comp and take to it. How did you go from, okay, this is kind of my niche, to there's something lacking in the industry and I want to fill that gap?
How did I saw what, how do I want to say this? Everybody hates work comp. It is the point of frustration for every business owner out there. Yeah. The small ones try and avoid it. Oh, they're all independent contractors, right? Mm-hmm. Like we've all heard this story. And then there's this disconnect in work comp when claims happen, and then how much longer it is before it affects your premium. And friction exists at every single touch point of work comp. Mm-hmm. When you're buying the policy, when you're doing the payroll audit, when you have a claim, when the injured worker is trying to come back to work, there has to be a better way. And so we would actually just go out and market and talk to people about their workers' compensation troubles. We didn't take over somebody with a 0.6 mod. We took over people with a 1.5 mod and showed them the path to get to the lower one. But you had to get your mindset right. We were not one to work with clients, or we needed to educate clients. Just because an injured worker got injured today, you used to love them yesterday, and now they're mad and they think they're faking it. And it would kind of turn into this animal, like, no, let's treat the person with, humanity and compassion. They didn't ask to get hurt. Right. And I saw so many of these people, a friend that I know really well got hurt at work, and the company that she works for was a larger company, and they assigned her the most mundane task for about a year. Mm-hmm. They cut her hours. They brought her back to work. They put her in a basement doing something all by herself, but she's a people person. And the company that she'd worked for, that she thought was great for 15 years, instantly became her adversary after her work comp claim. Doctors botched the surgery. She had to go into the surgery again. The family finances struggle a little bit. They're worried about their job. What do? You're in constant pain. You can't do things with your kids. And there wasn't any humanity or compassion at that business level. So she ends up looking for another job, finds it, and takes it. And they lose all of that experience for somebody that had been a great employee because they screwed up the claim process. Mm-hmm. And so we just set on a path to make it a better way, kind of connect this ecosystem, make it easier for businesses, brokers, carriers to simplify this entire process. And so we're in the middle of that vision right now, working on it every day to execute it. And I hope 20 years from now, we can have this podcast again, and like there'll be a difference that we made in this world.
We want to thank Gary Bontrager Consulting for being a sponsor on the Mindset Growth Podcast. There's a variety of services they offer. They have human resources for one. They have a sales program. They also work with the financials, whether you need to help set up your QuickBooks or go with a high-level person that can help you do benchmarking, budgeting, and the likewise. They also do a lot of leadership training, whether you're the business owner, manager, or are just leaders in departments. They can tailor those packages for you. Reach out to them for a free consult, and they will see what your needs are and offer different opportunities for you to put in motion to take your business to the next level. They have been successful over the past few years in helping organizations not only grow, but grow as much as 200%, 300%, and 400% in a 12-month period. Certainly, they understand it takes a strong foundation, and there are years where there may be no growth leading up to this as they put the right pieces in place. Reach out to them at www.garybontrager.com. You can reach out to them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter and get the free advice that they offer, and that may be just what you need to set you on a different path to lead you forward and be successful in your business and your life. We appreciate them supporting us. So the thing that you've talked about with frustration with work comp, probably a lot of small town agents such as myself, we don't like it probably any better than the client does. And probably one of my frustrations, and this is a question I've been wanting to ask you, is you say there's a path forward and we can sit down with the client, but the companies don't really offer anything that shows how the mod goes up, how it comes down. It's just like, well, you got this bad mod and you're getting dinged for it. And, you can tell them, well, you've got too many claims, too many losses. But with your mod advisor, am I correct in, I'm just guessing, I guess, but you're kind of laying out a path of how the formula works and how that rate's going to change and what needs to be done to do the things you were just talking about. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we do real-time mod analysis. And here's where I think agents as a whole, in general, get it wrong. We sit down at renewal because this is what everybody taught us. The insurance company sends us our mod worksheet. We plug it in. Hey, your mod's a 1.3. We maybe run it through our mod calculator. Yep, it's right. It looks like you had all those claims, and we do nothing. So let's look at those claims. We actually model out what every single claim has for an impact. We talk about a future strategy. What are you going to do next year and the year after? And then what would happen if we actually took that real time? What if you had a claim today and tomorrow we modeled out what that financial impact was going to be based upon the claims reserves? And we told you today what actions you could take to modify that claim, whether it's a medical only claim or medical indemnity, or if you bring them back to work. There's a lot of levers that a business can pull to help themselves. And that's really where we want to take that education is real time. The claims that a business has today in 2023 aren't going to affect their mod in 2025.
No.
And when whatever agent sits down with them in 2025, they're like, well, if you would have told me in 2023, I would have done something different. Well, we're building the software to tell you.
Right. And so this is designed to work with small town agencies all the way up with large agencies. Anybody can plug into it, and there's probably price points and things that are different depending on the size and the volume.
Yep. So we're nationwide, aside from 2 states right now. We work with small emerging brokers that are, there's a lot of brokers out there that write personal lines that want to get into commercial. And so we've got a ton of marketing information and resources to kind of help them bridge that gap. And then we also work with some of the top insurance carriers in the country. So there's a whole gamut in between.
As far as insurance goes, clearly you got out of it, and I understand you're an entrepreneur and you like creating and building things. So we're going to kind of go off script, I guess, at this point. We're just having a conversation anyway. For you to go through and build things, give us 3 takeaways. We've got people that Here's what we see happen, and you've seen this in insurance all the time. And this is why I even developed a consulting company, because I work with a lot of contractors, and they come in and they are really good at plumbing. They're a good electrician, framer. Then they have the business side to do, and they discover that their full-time job really is managing, bidding, managing employees, bidding projects, collecting money, taking care of the finances. Everything becomes something they'd never done before, and they're not allowed to really do what they enjoyed and what they were good at. And then we start dealing with not only work comp issues, but premiums, and just everything comes off the rails. So that's where my need, I seen the need, and I, try to fill that gap and work with a lot of those folks so they can understand what QuickBooks and accounting is, and how to properly bid jobs and figure overhead costs and all those things. With that, what do you see in that space with that? I mean, is that a big gap? Or are you still, working with those small companies? Those are frustrations for you. What are 3 things you'd give somebody advice in if they're going to go out and start their own business, or they have it and they're struggling?
Change is hard.
Yeah.
That change is hard. If I look back on my career when I started, we had to put food on the table, so I sold everything. Mm-hmm. That was to a detriment, because when you get some of your larger clients, you have to let go of some of the ones that have been with you since the beginning, and change is hard. You read all the books. It's like, where do you want your life to be in 5 or 10 years? Right. What does that look like? And then work back. Right. That would be my advice. Figure out where you want to be in 5 or 10 years, and then work back and what needs to happen. And you're probably not going to like some of those changes. They're going to be hard, but if that's where you want to go, you got to turn the car.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So basically, make the hard decision is your advice. Just get focused, set the goal, make the hard decision, push through on it.
And it's that as well, Heather, Gary. It's not going to be easy. No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we took some heat when we made some changes in the office. Well, Todd's not in, or Todd's not doing that. Well, we have to change who we are and how we do business to get to where we want to go. Well, and not everyone's going to make it with us.
No,
that's right. It's very hard on that support team, because change is so much more difficult for the support team, because those supporters love mm-hmm. routine, and it is hard for them to say, well, so-and-so's not in the office. We're unsure where we fit into this picture at this point. But yeah, it's difficult to let go, to move on, to do what you need to do. But that's what so many people need to get comfortable with.
The interesting thing too is we probably our careers are mirroring each other a little bit professionally, and going and doing other things. And you have clients that are like wondering where you're at and what's happening. But it certainly is hard, but you've got to be intentional. You got to live with purpose, and you got to do what's right for yourself. And I would push that all day, every day. One thing that I think we're seeing, and I want to share this a little bit because I'll pull insurance in on this. You've seen an incredible amount of change from 2004 to 2020. And that was, or we're not even in a 20-year span. You've seen incredible change. I know I have. I could start with a few companies, and if it was a line of business they didn't write, they'd make the exception, so I wouldn't go bring on a competing carrier that would write it. Today, they're getting rid of business and they don't care. But I guess I want some thoughts on yours even, because that doesn't just happen in insurance. The economics change, things change. You're self-employed in different ways. What you're trying to do, what you talked about, is real time. So what's some advice you give any business owner, how to stay relevant and how to stay focused on what's happening in their industry in real time?
Well, I think you got to get active and get involved in whatever it is in your industry that's on the cutting edge. I think a lot of things changed for me, and I don't know if you remember this. There was a group out there called the Insurance Agents Owners Alliance. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes. Yes.
All right. When I joined the Insurance Agents Owners Alliance, there were 2 people in Iowa, myself and a guy named Zach Mefford that now owns Zach Mefford and Ryan Swald. They own Zip Bonds and Coverage Direct. And in 2018, they had 2,000 members in this group. And for years in my career, my education came from state associations, carrier sponsored events, and things that were CE. Mm-hmm. And the frustration I had, and I'm sure you too, we would all get together and golf, but nobody really dug into how their business was operated, what growth strategies were working for them, what you're paying people, what your comp plan looks like. All of these things that as a business owner who runs a small business, you kind of want to normalize that and understand, am I in the right segment? Am I on the top, the bottom? What do I need to do? And so I went to my very first Insurance Agents Owners Alliance, which back then was sponsored by Dave Jackson and Nick Ayers. Nick Ayers has gone on to build Better Agency, which is an AMS that he's trying to change the game for insurance agents and make a lot of things automated for them. But I heard things that I never heard before. I mean, I heard amazing growth strategies and tips and tricks and collaboration suddenly with agents all over the country. I suspect that exists in a lot of other verticals like what you're talking about, whether it's construction or manufacturing. Right. And so as somebody who wants to be on the cutting edge and wants my business to grow and thrive, and I think if your people share that same mindset, they need to go seek the people that are out there talking and growing and doing those things, make the time. So you and I hear, well, I don't have time to go do that, or I don't have money. That'll be the best money and time you've ever spent, because it's personal growth and business growth, and it will come back to you in dividends.
Right. No, I agree. It's the term I use is you need to take the time to work in your on your business. Most people get buried working in it, and they can't see past what's just around them every day. So,
and insurance is
and that's
very
so bad
good
right now.
Yeah. Insurance is such a good example of that too. You know, I started in 2000-ish, I believe. And there was no, like you said, yes, you go for the CEs, there's some networking stuff, but you don't get any information on how to run your business, how to build your business, how to grow your business. It's just on what's new in your industry. So I'm sure that that's what so many other entrepreneurs or business owners are taking their time doing, is just, you know, getting done what they have to do, not putting themselves out there to learn and educate, to grow. So that's kind of what we focus on, and why we have people like yourself on to talk about the importance of that.
Talk a little bit about developing the process with software and the battle you had to fight there.
I don't know that it was a battle.
Wasn't it?
No, I consider myself very fortunate. We found a great development team in India. The guy that owns the company, he's an entrepreneur, employs a bunch of people over there, speaks English. The biggest challenge was try and imagine communicating what workers' compensation is, the workers' compensation formula, the various workers' compensation state rules, exemptions, and all of that other stuff to somebody in India and say, I need you to build this and code it out. I mean, it took us a good 16, 18 months to even get our minimum viable product off the ground. Today we're their only client. I'm really blessed to work with them. Right. I've got nothing but good things to say about what they're doing, how hard they work. But it's a challenge. And I mean, you can't get frustrated because there's two people trying to come together to meet each other's needs. And I know there's a language barrier and they don't understand, and you may have to explain the same thing 5, 7, 10 different times. But eventually when both parties get it, and I'm notorious for this, I don't understand coding whatsoever. Right. I don't know how to write code. I just tell you, I want a button over here, and they make a button put over there. I want it to be green, yellow, red, whatever, they do it. Here's the other interesting thing that I've learned. It's not that hard to change software. All the BS that you hear from websites and all this other stuff, like, we can't change that. It's really not that hard. To move a button around or make a form field filled out or change a drop down. I do it every day. It's not as hard as people make it sound.
So that's what we hear a lot of times. They can't update their technology, which has been an age-old problem, but I don't know. We've done it too. It's not that difficult. And I found that it's not nearly as expensive as what a lot of people say it is if you get the right people involved. I think there's a whole group of folks, I don't care what industry they're in, that try to play on the folks that think this is really hard. So we got to charge a lot of money to make it happen. And it's not really the case.
Or
Now,
you can get paralysis by analysis, right?
right.
Sometimes just make a decision and move on. Like,
There you go. You're
we can
my
fix
kind
it
of
later
man.
on. Like,
Yeah.
let's just.
Here's a quote I like to tell people all the time. One, just let me back up a little. On any company, if they know what your mission statement, your core values are, a lot of the employees can make decisions and move forward without involving the business owner or their leader and manager on every step. So that's key right there. But I always, for myself, have this theory, and I believe it's served me well. It's better to make a good decision today than the best decision tomorrow. Just make the damn decision, because if you
100%.
wait till tomorrow, many times that opportunity disappears. And we can live with good decisions all day long, and some good decisions turn into great decisions, and some of them, well, they're not any good, but if you thought you made the best one, you're probably not making it either. And if you don't make a decision, you're still making one to procrastinate. So some people get up, make it happen. I encourage anybody, that's half the battle in all of it. Be aggressive and make it happen. And being involved in multiple businesses, how do you juggle your schedule? You talked a little bit earlier about work-life balance and your personal life. The reason I bring this up, a lot of times I get called in by a company, and I've had this to where I've looked at the business owner, never met him before. It's our first in-person meeting, and I'm asking them what's wrong. Like, they look sick. I'm thinking, are they terminal with cancer, or what's going on? And what's happened is they're so bogged down, and they're trying to, be the CFO, the CEO, the project manager, the estimator. They're just doing everything. And when you're doing all these things, and you tell me that you're going to jump on a bike when you want to and things like that, I can promise you've got a structure where I can tell all your businesses are functioning just fine and they're moving forward, and you're at a good, healthy space mentally, emotionally, physically, and life's pretty damn good. So how does that balance look for you, and how do you juggle that? Because I feel it's a very important part for small business owners that they really need to get their mind around it.
This is a great question. Let's talk about the hard things.
Yes.
The problem in every scenario that you just described is the business owner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They are the barrier to their growth, their company's growth, their success, their fears. I mean, with all the different personality types, you get fears, you get nervousness, you get anxiety. It manifests itself at work and maybe handicaps the business a little bit. We aren't as important as we think we are.
Right.
Like, as a business owner, we don't need to do it all. As a leader, we don't need to do it all. We're not that important. We don't need to hide, what it is that we do. And I would say, even going back to when, my early days at Thams agency, we empowered everybody. Like, this is your job. I believe that people want to come to work. They want to do a good job. They want to be treated fairly with respect, and they want to go home feeling like they accomplished something that day.
Right.
Yeah.
Pay them well, let them do whatever they need to do. And that's going to cut a pretty wide swath through this country. I think a lot of small business owners think that nobody can do it as good as they can. They need to be the one to do the bidding. They need to be the one to pound the nail. They need to want to go out and check the job site. Somebody else can be trained to do that.
Right.
And I guarantee if you work with them long enough, they will think and act just like you, and you will have trained somebody to be your right hand. And that will take you farther, and that will take them farther, because they'll grow. And even if they're not with you forever, then they grow and they take another position in another company, and you were that step in their career. And I think most people are thankful for that.
I would have completely
help
agree.
others up the ladder. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
There you go.
A lot of that, what you just said, I summarize it as make a difference in somebody else's life, pull them up. Seen a quote just the other day. You never see somebody more successful than you tearing you down. True. So surround yourself with those strong people, but still want to know how you juggle all your businesses and your schedule. I think that's an important piece for people to understand.
So this is kind of a hard thing, right? Because the working world will tell you need to work 40 hours a week.
Right.
And I don't think that is consistent or realistic. There are times where we travel and work 60, 70 hours a week. And there are times where I have nothing to do today. Mm-hmm. I kind of enjoy some of those times.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of need to go where your business is and recognize that it's okay to take some downtime. You have to do that. Recognize, don't be at work just to be at work and fidget.
Right.
There's really no point in that. Sometimes, you've all been there. You've been in there with crop renewals. You've been there with health renewals. Like, there are times you got to get in and get it done.
Right.
And it's interesting. Even at Thams Agency, we had a variable work week. It was a minimum 35-hour week. So actually, before COVID, we adopted a 35-hour work week as opposed to 40. And I said, everybody, you need to work a minimum of 35. If you need to stay late and get it done. We actually had 12% growth the next year. Like, people actually work harder to come in later and drop their kids off at school, or to be at home earlier. Or we gave them flexibility to work from home. This is even long before COVID. Work when there's work, take some time off when there's not, and enjoy your life.
Yeah. Well, there's just such a work-life balance. And we talk a lot about the rest-run cycle. And I think if people will focus, and this is an exercise Heather and I've gone through, clearly you've done it. If we start to focus on the things that we're really good at, and when you talk about 5 years, I know how many hours a week I want to work in 5 years from now. I don't intend to probably ever retire, but I know how many hours I'm going to work. It's less than I do today. But I also know what I want to accomplish relatively in the hours I'm putting in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my income's not going to go down. There's not a chance of that, but I am going to work less. But there are times, like you said, you're very busy. So, any thoughts and questions on that, Heather?
No, I think that was a very important point that you made. As we call it, the run rest. Like, so many people spend time at the office thinking that they need to supervise. They don't really have much going on. If you've trained them right, they're going to do their job. They'll be there. You work when you need to work. That's a very important thing for people to learn.
So where can people find Todd Thams and keep up with you and what you're doing? And if they're in insurance and they want to know more about Mod Advisor, or list off some of your other business ventures if you want.
So this week is crazy. I'll be in Minneapolis for the next 2 days. I think I'm going to be in Key West at a killing commercial seminar down there. But I'm all over LinkedIn. My marketing person now has me on TikTok. So we're recording some TikToks, which is maybe a little against my grain, but we're getting in on that. Certainly a couple websites, modadvisor.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, follow me all over the place. We're all over.
And what's next? What's the future going to hold for you?
What's next? Well, I think I kind of mentioned, so as part of our exit out of Denison, we're selling our commercial building. We're selling our house. We're getting ready to move to the Ankeny area. And for your Iowa listeners, we actually just acquired the Spavia franchise. My wife did. She's a registered, or I guess she has a master's in nursing, not a registered nurse, a master's in nursing. And this is right up her alley. And our kids are graduated. So we're heading back to the city and still have to be the entrepreneurial mindset, but growing Mod Advisor, growing the spa, and we'll see where life takes us.
Well, congratulations. Yeah. It's exciting to have this visit with you. I know we've crossed paths at company events and things like that over the years in insurance. Clearly, once we first opened up and started this conversation, I didn't realize you were outside of insurance already. I guess I assumed you were doing some of these things in adjacent with that. So kind of threw me off on all the questions we had, but I appreciate your time and I appreciate your takeaways because it's pretty simple. It seems like one thing I'm taking away from visiting with you today: break it down, keep it simple, and take care of yourself. That a fair assessment?
Fair assessment.
All right. Well, I look forward to following you on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Safe travels this week, and appreciate your time coming on Mindset Growth Podcast.
Gary, Heather, thanks so much for having me. Keep doing what you're doing. People need to hear this. Love you guys for having me on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.